Elaine, talk to us.
We are live. Sorry for the delay, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to put the PowerPoint on the screen and we'll start the meeting. Is that okay, Greg?
Yes, please. So we're calling this meeting to order 10 minutes after 5 o'clock. And we begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which we gather is a traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. So thank you. Moving into the preamble specific for this meeting, welcome all of those who are participating either through this Zoom interactive portion or viewing on YouTube. Welcome to this hearing, the Committee of Adjustment for the City of St. Catharines. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. And by present, we mean those who have pre-registered to be part of the Zoom portion. There are two major types of applications to this committee. One is an application for consent and severance, and two are applications for minor variance and municipal bylaw requirements. Evidence may be required to be given under oath if deemed necessary. Please address all of your comments and questions through the chair. That'll be me this evening. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant and to any other person who appeared before the committee or filed a written request to receive notice of decision. In the matter of consent applications, any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of the consent. And that appeal can be made to the local Planning Appeal Tribunal, or LPAT, within 20 days of the mailing of the decision. Minor variance decisions may also be appealed. However, they must be made within 20 days of the making of the decision, and the cost of an appeal is $400. So the takeaway there is, however your application goes this evening, whether you're an applicant or a concerned citizen, there is recourse for you through the LPAT to have the application heard again. Are there any amendments or additions to the agenda? Elaine?
There are. We have added a request for deferral for the minor variance application for the 36 The Cedars and for the minor variance application for 41 Ravine. As well, we have added a request for a change of conditions regarding consent B3520SC for 7 Lancaster Avenue. So we do have a new agenda, just to let you know. So the agenda needs to be approved, Chair.
Right, that is a new thing in the list of housekeeping that needs to be done. So does someone make a motion to adopt the agenda? Adam, thank you. And we're on version 4 of the agenda, by the way. So we're adopting version 4, V4.0 of the agenda. There's still some more questions to be asked. Does any member of this panel have a conflict of interest in any of the applications to be considered at this hearing or the previous hearing if they were not in attendance? I do not. And it looks like it's unanimous. We are short one committee member this meeting, so it'll just be the 4 of us. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
There are 3 requests for 2 requests for an adjournment, or 3 requests, sorry. One is for 102 Broadway. It's a consent with 2 minor variances.
Really?
The agent is here, Frank DiPietro. The next one is for number 5, item number 5, 36 The Cedars. It's a minor variance. It was staff requested that the application be deferred to the next hearing. The identification of an issue with respect to notice and the correct zoning provision being varied triggers the need for additional time to fully review. And the third one is for 61 Ravine Road, minor variance AO 421. In light of the comments provided from the planning department, the owner and the agent request that application AO 421 be deferred to allow time to discuss the application with staff.
All right.
So of the three requests, and we
Okay.
do still need to do the previous minutes as well.
Yeah, no, that's next to my list, I think. Now we have a motion to adopt the minutes of the last meeting. Robin, thank you so much. Is there anything you want any words to that? No? Okay, good. Excellent. Thumbs up. Okay, so we, as in Adam Selvig, David Ringler, Carrie Leask is not present, Robin McPherson, and I, the chair, are the Committee of Adjustment. We are a volunteer committee, so we have taken time out of our regular day of activity to participate in this process as to assist in these review of these applications. We have a variety of city available. Those of you who made applications will know Elaine and Will quite well as the variety of planners. I don't know exactly who's on here. I know I've seen Evan. There could be Charlotte, and there can be Judy P. Hack and a number of planners, and they will participate in the whichever application they are most familiar with throughout the evening. So that takes care of all of that. So unless Elaine tells me otherwise, we can start with talking about the request for adjournment or deferral.
So the first one would be Frank for 102 Broadway.
Why does that sound so familiar, that address? Is that because it's been deferred now for the last, I don't know, 6 meetings? Well, can we have the applicant or agent come on and tell us how things are going with this sticky project?
Yeah, it's Frank here. Hi, everybody. It's moving along a little bit slowly. We're just still trying to finalize our application, and we just keep making different decisions. So hopefully very soon we will have something ready.
Okay. So there's no complaint. So it's the decision making on your end that's taking some time.
Yeah, entirely
All right.
And our delay here.
Okay. Well, as long as you can't blame any of the fine people at City Hall, good. So with that explanation, would someone like to make a motion as to and also the request is to have it deferred for the next 3 months up. So 3 months from now?
Yes.
Oh, you're not fooling around. So whatever date that is, March, the March meeting, January, February, March, no, I guess April meeting. So anybody like to make a motion to defer this project to April meeting? David Ringler?
I move that the application for 102 Broadway be deferred until the April meeting.
Wow, well said. All those in favor of deferring this application to the April meeting? All right, it's been unanimously deferred. See you in the spring.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a hard copy of one of the versions of the agenda, so and I'm trying to look feverishly online at my digital copy. So I think that 71 Bradley.
Sorry, no, we're going to be doing another deferral for 36 the Cedars.
All right, the Cedars.
And the agent is here, Lou Malone. I'll help you along so that
yeah.
variety.
So Cedars, item number 5 in our agenda. And would the applicant or owner like to tell us what's behind the deferral request?
We're regarding Cedar, you're regarding?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, apparently the client there wants to put a new garage, has an existing garage. Well, not existing, but a proposed garage there.
Well, yeah. It's just, excuse me, Elaine.
We're just talking about the deferral right now. We just are requesting.
Staff are requesting deferral.
Yes.
And the applicant understands what that means, and they're okay with it. That was what I wanted to hear.
Yes.
Okay. And is this a deferral just for our next meeting, or is there a specific target we're
To the next meeting.
next meeting? Okay. So we have a committee member, Adam, looks like you're ready to defer this to next meeting.
Yes, I'll make the motion to defer to the February 24th meeting.
Okay. All those in favor? We're always in favor of these things. Unanimous. Great. See you next month.
Thank you. Thank you.
So where does Paxton fit on the list?
They're not there yet. The next one is for item number 6, 61 Ravine, a request for deferral. And the agent is John Idzierski, who is present as well.
Okay, so item number 6 on our agenda. This was an owner requested deferral. I see that the technical report suggested approval of some minor variances, denial of others. So one might assume that you're going to be working with staff to get what you want, if that's correct. Anything else you wish to add? You're on mute right now. John, you're muted. Where your microphone is.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I apologize. I received the comments from the planning department. I was a little disappointed. I thought what I was asking for was very minor in nature. And I'm glad that they were approving 2 of the variances, but the other 2 were quite critical for my client. And I just thought it wouldn't be fair to proceed without me discussing this with staff to ensure that my client gets the best result for him.
Excellent. So we're deferring this to our next meeting then? That'll give you enough time to consult with your client?
Yes, yes.
Elaine?
No, we're circulating the next meeting on Tuesday. I would suggest
Not enough time?
not, it might be, but just so he doesn't have to come back, like at least try to maybe
So
to the month after.
So the motion
Okay.
will suggest 2 months from now, but if you're lucky enough to have your communication and get in the next circulation, you can do it sooner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything
Thank
okay?
you. I was hoping it was seemed all very extremely minor. I was disappointed by the comments. So rather than waste my client's money, we want to do it right.
Okay, thank you. So committee member to Robin.
I move to defer 41 Ravine Road to the March meeting. Yes,
Perfect.
March.
All those in favor for the deferral of this application to the March meeting, unanimously done. Great, thank you so much. Good luck with your consultation.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So Broadway, Bradley.
No, not yet. So
Okay.
we do have,
Lancaster.
these are all the changes that came about. So we do have a request for change of conditions for 7 Lancaster. The
Okay.
owner and agent are present, Craig Rowe and Mike DiPiola. I will put on the screen the file.
And the agenda item for Lancaster was?
It's a previous approved consent. They're requesting a change of conditions.
Right. Change of conditions. So would the applicant and or agent please inform us of the requested change of conditions?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Craig Rowe, Upper Canada Consultants. We're the agent for the file representing our client, Mike DiPaula, who owns 7 Lancaster Avenue. On September 23rd of 2020, the Committee of Adjustment approved consent application and related minor variance to create an additional parcel, as you're seeing on the screen there, part 2 being the new lot, which will be known as 9 Lancaster Avenue. In the time since then, we've worked to satisfy all of our conditions of approval, and we made a clearance submission on November 20th. Staff's been excellent to work with in expediting and moving that along. At the end of December, there was some correspondence between the owner of the property and the legal department as we were finalizing the development agreement, where it was noted that there is a concern about the road widening transfer that's being provided to the city of St. Catharines. So as you can see, I'll say in the bottom left of the sketch in front of you, there's an existing sanitary service that crosses over part 3 in the bottom corner of part 1. It's a dual service that services 5 Lancaster and 7 Lancaster. And the concern of the city of St. Catharines is that they will not take the widening because it's not free and clear of encumbrance. There is a blanket easement to which I was not made aware going into the application process, so it wasn't captured in our application. But through the legal workings to get the development agreement ready to go, it was identified that the city wouldn't be able to take this encumbered dedication, that we'd have to work to remedy it, namely by getting the easement lifted off title. In order to do this, it now involves a third party, which is the owner of 5 Lancaster. And respectfully, I will indicate to the committee that our client has tried very hard over the past 2 months to satisfy this individual. They've made unreasonable monetary requests of our client to lift that easement in the values of tens of thousands of dollars for a small paper exercise. So we're really in the hands of the committee right now. It's my professional opinion as a planner that this is indeed a hardship. Based on the development along this section of Lancaster Avenue, from my planning opinion, is that you will likely not see any other severances or any other development applications that would ever result in a road widening along the segment of road. So the loss of this potential widening in terms of a resource to the city is of low value. I think that if this relief cannot be granted, of course, the consents and the variances would lapse and fail. And then it wouldn't uphold the decision of the committee nor contribute to the achievement of the growth objectives, which is what we grounded the original application in. We've exhausted pretty much every avenue except basically paying the neighbor an exorbitant amount of money to get this remedied. My suggestions and recommendation to the committee would be that from a planning perspective, I do understand the importance of taking road widenings and the authority of the city to do as such. I think this scenario is one of those few limited and unique scenarios that committee should give a careful consideration of. I don't feel that there's going to be any significant negative impact to the municipality. And most notably is that this cross service affects only the retained parcel and not the severed. So there will be no encumbrance or additional manifestation of a bad circumstance by allowing the severance to be carried out and completed and registered. It won't affect building permit. It won't affect anything. We're merely being handcuffed by a third party that's being unreasonable in allowing us to move forward and release that interest.
Okay, thank you. I think we should have our city planning expert fill us in on the city's perspective on this application. Please, Judy.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, it's really a situation where had we known at the outset that the city would not be able to take this road widening because of the encumbrance, we might have thought twice about asking for it. That information was not known at the time. Essentially, what we have is a decision that binds a third party that wants nothing to do with this unless he's compensated, amounts of money that in my mind are a little exorbitant. So it's really the committee's decision to decide whether the road widening can be waived with respect to the extenuating circumstances that are present here. So it's the committee's jurisdiction, and they're well within their mandate to make that decision. I would ask that when you make the motion that you determine it to be minor. That is in order to meet some requirements of the Planning Act. And in my mind, in fact, it would be minor. Though there's no other implication in terms of other approvals that were granted by the committee. So in my mind, it's really within the committee's jurisdiction, and there's no undue hardship to the city should they waive that requirement.
Okay, thank you. I think I also noticed on the plan there that the adjacent house on the corner, there's a distance of 2 point something meters from the property line, which would further 2.43 meters, which further suggests that that there's some relative encroachment into the side yard or to the road widening request on the street. So I guess that's what the intent of that was. Is there any members of the committee who have any questions for either the applicant or the city planner? Would someone like to make a motion? Okay. Oh, there we go. David. Good to hear from you.
I'd like to move that we remove the road widening condition from consent application B3520SC as it is minor in nature.
That should satisfy the requirements of the Planning Act, mentioning that as minor nature. So all those in favor of the motion, show of hands. So that's been passed unanimously.
Great. Thanks very much. And we appreciate being accommodated tonight with short notice.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I think we're now starting our regular, whatever is left on our agenda, starting with 71 Bradley,
Correct.
because I am now up to speed with my up-to-date version 4 agenda. Okay, so 71 Bradley, what can we say about that? We can say that it's a consent application, and we can say that there are a boatload of conditions that the city has recommended, city planning has recommended, 8, I guess, and there are no associated minor variances. So if the applicant wishes to fill us in on anything, on their reaction, I guess, or comments to the conditions that the city planning has recommended, I'd like to hear from you now.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of committee and members of the public. My name is Susan Smythe. I am the senior planner from Quartet Group, working on behalf of the applicants. So in terms of the planning report that was presented for committee's consideration and the recommendation, on behalf of the applicant, we have no issues in terms of those recommended recommendations. I just want to shed some light in terms of the progress that is made to date and maybe a little bit of history on the property. Committee back in 2019, February of 2019, approved this consent application with the concurrent minor variances that dealt with lot area and also dealt with the lot frontage. However, the conditions were not able to be fulfilled by the deadline of February of 2020 due to the fact that there was new purchasers of the property, which I'm here presenting on behalf of the current owners. They were under the impressions that they were all cleared, and unfortunately they were not. There has been correspondence between the Niagara Escarpment Commission, which of course has jurisdiction because we do fall within the escarpment. We've received confirmation from them on November 26th of 2020 that they are satisfied and the original permit, development permit that they have on file is still applicable. So they have no issues with what is being currently presented and for approval at this time. I understand that there was some comments provided from the adjacent property owners. And I did prepare just some couple slides to make mention of what is being proposed in terms of dealing with the concerns for erosion. Actually, and if you want to, the elevation plans are there as well. So those are the elevation plans that were subsequently approved and reviewed by the NEC, and again, they have no issues with those. So here again is just unfortunately the delineation of the box on the property is just a little off, but the property again is subject to consent for semi-detached dwelling. If you just go further down, here again, we're here for the consent. So the severed property, which would be 70A, it has a lot area and it is got a deficient lot frontage. So under the bylaw, it's 12 meters, but we're requesting 10.64. The retained parcels, which is part 2 and 3, they have a deficient lot area. They also have a deficient lot frontage. So in addition to the consent, those variances are also being captured for approvals. In terms of the concerns for, again, the drainage, erosion, we have been retained to also do the site servicing and the lot grading. So to deal with the issues for drainage, essentially there is going to be a swale that will be in the rear yard, and it will capture the drainage, and it will be pushed towards the catch basin at the road. In addition to the potential erosion, there will be silt fencing that will be provided along the eastern edge, so bordering 69 Bradley Street, to prevent the soil sediment erosion. To address the comment and the condition for a development agreement for the additional sanitary sewer, the manhole, again, there is no issues in respect to that condition. And essentially, this concludes the presentation.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
Is any, so we've received written correspondence, and I believe there's still a person registered to speak on this application. So maybe is there any questions of the committee right now to the applicant before we, oh, okay. So Elaine, shall we invite the neighbor to speak? Okay, so you are going to unmute yourself.
There, so I'm sorry, Lucy, and I'm gonna unmute them for them. See if I could.
Got
There we
it.
go.
Sorry about that. Hi, Susan. I'm glad to see you're looking at my concerns. I just one, like it seems like you're going to build a swell so the water will drain from the back to down. Is it draining down both sides of the property, or the?
So for the purposes of this meeting, you're directing your question, you're directing your comments to me, and then I will engage. So
Okay.
At this point, we'd like to hear everything you have to say, and then we will pick out those pieces that might require further review.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Greg. Yeah, I just want to be ensured that, like, my concern was more like, because our ground level at the southwest corner of our building, the culvert is, and the elevation of the ground is quite a bit higher. So I just didn't want to have like the stormwater from the house draining down onto our property and then maybe causing a issue with, I don't, any foundation issues or something in the future. No, I see there was I just have a question about what the temporary silt fencing is, like, how, if it's temporary, why is it temporary? That's like, it's not needed in the future. And then I guess the other thing, I don't know if I just want to, when construction begins, like I was suggesting a construction fence or something, just so that we don't end up with building materials on our property.
Okay. Well, that can be answered. Well, as part of the building permit process and building property standards and so on, I think I'm going to take a stab at this, that the erosion, so any post-development changes to grading has to ensure that all the stormwater management happens within the proposed development and does not negatively impact neighbors. So that is something that not only has the applicant demonstrated that they are reviewing, but they have to, because the city is also looking at making sure that's the case. A silt fence is something that's done during construction when there is exposed native material, and that controls runoff during construction, and it's considered temporary. It's that sort of 600 millimeter high black earth cloth that allows water through. So that is something that is required probably by the Niagara Escarpment Commission and so on during construction to control runoff, but it's not something that stays afterward. And then you asked about construction debris impacting your property. Again, all construction activity is to be isolated on the site of construction, and you are well within your rights, should you have a complaint, to contact the city if there's something that you're concerned about, and the city bylaw enforcement would take charge of your concern. I don't know if the planner involved in this project from the city has anything that they want to add. And if not, we can ask the applicant if they have anything they want to add.
Chair Redden, I'll just add that we do take drainage quite seriously. So as part of the application, as a condition of severance, we are recommending that the approved grading plan, which has to be submitted from Quartec to city staff for review to ensure, as you said, that all stormwater is contained on the lot. That grading plan will be registered as part of the development agreement so that it is legally binding.
Okay. And the applicant, do you have anything you wish to add to what we've discussed?
No, Mr. Chair, I think you did a great job. Thank you.
All right. So to the speaker, have we satisfactorily addressed your concerns?
I believe so, yes.
All right. Everybody's happy except for Elaine, who wants to get my attention. Oh, Elaine, you're muted.
I just wanted to clarify that no variances were required because the property is in the NEC area. So no minor variances were needed.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think that covers all the discussion required for this application. So at this point, if there are no lingering questions from committee members, someone will, Robin, for example, would like to take on presenting a motion.
I would. Thank you, Chair. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent application B5120SC as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the technical report, as they are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse effects on the surrounding properties, have regard for section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, maintain the intent and purpose of the provincial policy statement, and do not conflict with any applicable provincial plans.
Wow, another technically complete motion in there. Everything that the people need to know. All I's dotted, T's are crossed. Anybody have any like to? What do I ask? All those in favor of the motion? All right, to the applicant, your motion or your application has been approved unanimously. Go forth and construct.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, you as well.
Thank you.
Good night.
So item number 2 should be 8 Paxton Avenue. And this looks like it has garnered a lot of attention. So we have people registering to speak, and we have written in our reports, we have written correspondence. So we have the applicant, please tell us that they have had chance to read the staff report. We know that there are 14 conditions recommended for the severance, and there are 2 associated minor variances that staff have recommended that we should consider approving. So with the application, does the applicant like to offer anything in addition?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is William Hycoop. I'm a planner with Upper Canada Consultants.
William, can you hit the volume a bit? You're a little far away and a little distant.
Sorry, can you hear me better now?
No, I can hear you. Can anybody else have an issue hearing anybody by a show of hands? Yeah. So we have issues hearing you. Yes.
Just trying to turn up my speaker here. Is that any better?
Speak into the mic. Sit a little closer. Right. Okay, we're good.
Do the best I can here.
For those who can't hear you, they can turn up their own volume as well, just to it's not all their fault. Sorry, go ahead.
I bought another mic here and it was supposed to work, so apologies. But as I indicated, my name is William Hycoop. I'm a planner with Upper Canada Consultants. I'm been retained by the owner to represent them on this consent and minor variance application on Paxton Lane. Mr. Colonna is here along with me tonight. As you're aware, this file was scheduled in front of the committee this past year in August 2020. At the hearing, the application was deferred as there were several proposed variances that were not supported by staff. Since that time, the owner and myself have thoroughly considered the comments and responses from planning staff and the public. We have come forward with an updated application. I wish to thank planning staff for their consideration and assistance in the process of adjusting the proposed development in a way to bring the proposal into conformance with the relevant policy and provide for a more suitable and compatible development. The application before you this evening does not result in a change to the proposed lot configuration. Rather, the changes were made to the proposed dwellings and the requested variances. We completed a review and analysis of the existing lot fabric and the existing setbacks along Paxton Avenue. This led to a change of the proposed variances. Originally, there were 7 minor variances requested for each of the proposed lots. We were able to eliminate 2 of those requested variances, being the request for an increase of the building height and a decrease of the minimum outdoor privacy zone. The application has been revised to conform to those zoning provisions. The remaining provisions, the first one is a request for a reduced lot area of 200 meters squared and 210 meters squared. The second was a front yard setback. We changed that from a proposed 0 meter front yard setback to a 2.18 meter setback. A front yard setback to the garage was actually decreased from 4.4 meters to 4.16 meters. The front yard setback from a platform structure was changed from 0 meters to 0.68 meters. And the maximum lot coverage request went from 52% to 50% on one of the lots. The other lot is maintaining the request for 50% lot coverage. The proposed variances requested are in a large part a result of the required road widening of 56 meters squared being taken off the front of the property. And as you can see it shown in part 3 on the severance sketch. The front wall of the proposed dwelling is significantly behind the location of the existing dwelling, which almost touches the front property line or the front line of part 1 and part 2. Other than the variances, other issues were raised by the neighboring property at 6 Paxton Avenue regarding the existing London plane tree located near on the shared property line. In order to address these concerns, which were also noted by city staff, my client retained an ISA certified arborist from Beacon Environmental who prepared a tree preservation plan to address these concerns. Through that arborist report, a recommended tree protection zone was established for the London plane tree. This resulted in changes to the proposed dwelling, specifically the flipping of the southerly lot, or I believe it's the part 3 lot, from the south side to the north side. And we adjusted the building envelope to be outside of the required tree protection zone. Appropriate conditions of approval have been included for the protection of this tree. In addition to the tree protection measures, the required hoarding, fencing, there is a requirement for a $16,000 deposit to ensure that the tree is not damaged and it is maintained through the development process. This will all be secured through a development agreement. We've had a chance to review the other conditions of approval and are agreeable to them and have no concerns with the comments and the staff report. Overall, it is my opinion that the proposal now addresses the comments and concerns received and meets the applicable planning policy regarding lot creation and the applicable requirements being the 4 tests of the Planning Act. Thank you for your time, and I'm certainly here to address any questions or concerns. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. It's obvious the benefits that have attributed to this latest design in terms of addressing the number of issues that were in the initial application have certainly lessened the impact of this new proposed building on the site. So it's nice to see city staff and development applications working together in harmony. Is there any member of the committee who has any particular questions for the applicant at this time? No? So at this time, we can ask our registered speakers. There are two. Perhaps in order, I have Patrick and then Susan. So Patrick McCurry, are you ready to speak to us by first unmuting yourself? That did not do it. Elaine, do you have a master switch?
It won't let me.
Okay. So on Patrick, on your Zoom screen down in the bottom left-hand corner, presumably there will be an opportunity for you to control your camera and your microphone. Oh, speak to me, Patrick.
Hello.
There you go.
All right, great. Everything okay?
It is. So you're going to speak specifically to this application with respect to the severance and the five variances. The variances and in context of everything you just heard. So ideally, not necessarily repeating what we've already heard, but expressing your concerns.
Okay. Some of my concerns have been already addressed in the Bradley Street thing we just went through. My big concern is the tree protection plan. I'm glad that it was taken seriously and that's going to be in place. I just want to make sure that how this is going to be administered is someone to be monitoring what's going on. Like, I don't want any kind of demolition or anything going on that site until that plan is in place.
Well, I can assure you that the $16,000 security that is associated with this will keep the contractor's attention in making sure that that tree survives the construction. And we will see if we can't get an answer to whether or not who actually inspects the site. So if you keep on speaking, we'll take note of what your questions are.
Okay. Yeah, it's that, like, the monetary value is not as important as preserving that tree to me. So I just want to make sure that somebody is, looking after, monitoring that when the shovels hit the ground. To have it demolished later on or destroyed is not good to me. I want to make sure from the beginning that that's protected.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing that I had was about the drainage. I know on Bradley Street, it's going to be part of the development agreement, and I see it on this as well. There is a bit of a drainage problem on Paxton Street, Paxton Avenue. The catch basin is on Peel Street, which is just northwest of the subject lands at 810. And what happens is that a lot of the water builds up in front of my property and it doesn't run towards the catch basin. It's got a bit of an uphill grade to get there. So I don't want to see two new houses being built there and the drainage ends up in front of my house again. And we've got a permanent pond, on the little lane out in front.
So again, I think that through further discussion, but I'm not sure what the city intends to do by way of upgrading beyond the property line, but the applicant is responsible for not negatively impacting neighbors with shared property lines. However, the unfortunate instance where stormwater drains are higher than the road surface is an all too common occurrence throughout the city.
Okay. Well, nothing else really comes to mind now. I think it's a very good design in comparison to the original one. So we're fairly happy about all of the other elements. So that's all I have to say about it. My wife, Sue, is also in agreement, and she doesn't have to comment further either.
Okay, thank you. So, so anybody, so city planner associated with this project, having any experience with designated tree protection and I guess the regulation or the regular review of the I don't know, welfare of that tree during construction, is that something that we can assure the neighbors that you know, is in place and will be reviewed?
Yeah, I have this one, Greg. So as one of the recommended conditions is that the owner enter into a development agreement with the city. And it's through that development agreement that we will be able to implement all the recommendations that the arborist identified in the tree preservation plan that was submitted by the applicant. And one of the key recommendations was to establish tree protection fencing. So like physical hoarding, physical fencing around the perimeter of that tree within the tree protection zone. That has to be installed before any site alteration can commence and throughout construction. The idea is to help make sure that heavy equipment, stockpiling of materials, nothing happens within that zone during construction that could harm the tree. And then I think regarding the follow-up question, there's also going to be a requirement that a certified arborist do a visit and inspect the tree post-construction as well to identify if there was any harm to the tree that did occur.
And now with the awareness that this tree protection is part of this requirement, any neighbor who happens to witness any obstruction or removal of that would be able to contact the city, and the city would be able to, through bylaw enforcement, enforce any repair to that barrier. Is that correct?
Yes, if that would be a violation of the terms of the development agreement.
Okay.
We would have a recourse in that case.
Thank you. So that is intended to provide some clarity to the teeth that is associated with this development agreement for the protection of the tree. And again, I'm not sure, Scott, if you want to speak to any issues regarding stormwater runoff from the property onto a public street and supposedly into a public stormwater management system that may or may not be effective, but
one of the conditions is that the applicant will need to prepare a grading and drainage plan for the property to the satisfaction of the city's engineers. So that will detail exactly where all the flows from the roofs, the side yards, the backyards, the driveway. So it'll detail exactly where all of the water from the site is proposed to drain and ensure that it's not drain over neighboring properties. That's all directed to an appropriate outlet. Exactly what approach is going to end up making sense, I don't know at this point, but that's why it's recommended as a condition of approval. So the lots don't actually get created until the applicant can design something that the city is acceptable to our engineers.
Okay, and I think the answer to the idea that once the water safely makes it to the city's property, what happens out there, if there's a deficiency in the street, then I think that any resident is certainly welcome to call the appropriate department at City Hall and have them review the deficiencies with that catch basin and have that repaired. So that, I think, adequately, and maybe even more than adequately, addresses the questions of the one speaker. And with that, perhaps we could have the second speaker, Susan, address us. So thank you, Patrick.
Sorry, it should be Sarah Daniel. My apologies.
Oh,
I wrote it down as Susan.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sarah. Hi. Did you ever want to be a Susan? Because that was what you were right here. So Sarah, you are in fact muted.
Thank you. Sorry, I have been called Susan before, so that must be something that appeals.
I'm often called Gary. Anyway, but anyway.
Well, thank
Hello,
you.
Sarah.
So I'm a resident at to be a resident at 64 Christie. and my husband is Nassim Lahak, so that's what my interest is in this property. I just had no idea of what the elevation looks like unless I missed it in the documentation. And my concern only relates to the like the exceeding of the lot coverage.
Okay, so there was an elevation drawing included in our package, and there's a lovely hand rendered elevation drawing for you to see right now. So, and then, so hopefully, and again, we don't, this committee does not review design per se. We're not commenting on colors or materiality, but we are looking at things like lot coverage, which was your second question.
Yes.
And there are variances related to lot coverage. One of them, I thought one application was not looking for a variance for lot coverage. I'm lost now in my files.
Because I think some of the accompanying letters also expressed reservation about Ms. Turner's letter. The scale of the existing architect is such that 2 homes crammed into a small knot on a narrow one-way street would completely overwhelm the street. Yet the plan is to erect 2 mirror image homes. So that was one reference.
So we have all the written comments, and again, this is a matter of us determining whether we are making minor variants to existing bylaws, or is this an overdevelopment of a site. So that's fine. Ultimately, that's the result of the decisions that we're making. And right now, to assist us with that, we have all the various departments of City Hall and their report, which are recommending that, as you will have read, that conditions 1 through 14 be met in order to allow for the severance. And then with that in place, they are recommending that the variances associated with those be approved. And right now, you've identified the lot coverage as being one of the variances that you are particularly concerned about.
And I know that lane is very narrow, and the houses are quite close together in that lane. And I expressed this previously on a previous severance application many years ago. My concern is that one of the important reasons for restricting lot coverage is also ensuring fire safety. And I know one of the departments that is not, for some reason, consulted is the fire department, probably not required to, but if any of these, mainly these homes are built with just wood, stick and frame construction, and if any fire happens, the larger the home, the more likely it is to cause the neighboring home to ignite, especially with the winds. The winds are very strong, as I can attest to on that section of the lake. So when we're starting these kind of precedents to go over, I think it's 50%, 52%, that's going quite a lot larger. It's not like we're going, 42%, 43%. We're going, from what I understand, quite a lot larger, unless I've misunderstood what it's saying.
Okay, so that is accurate. They are asking for a numerical amount over, in that one particular case, the numerical amount compared to what's allowed versus what they're asking for. And our judgment is based on not just any one value, but the entire project application, which we are doing publicly here this evening. So with respect to fire protection, the Ontario Building Code is responsible for the determination of the combustibility of exterior materials and unprotected openings, windows that are close to a lot line that can allow fire to jump from one building to another. So I can say with absolute certainty that we're not varying the safety requirements with respect to the Ontario Building Code. We are varying planning bylaw requirements. So the building will still have to meet all of the safety requirements that the Ontario Building Code requires, and that will again talk about what they'll have to do for cladding material, combustible or non-combustible, and window sizes. So that will happen next, and is not part of our scope this evening. So we're just looking at whether or not the the whole package is minor in nature and meets the intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. So on those two matters, is there anything else you wish to add?
Just regarding precedent. So if the whole area has that cottage kind of feel, that particularly Paxton Lane, it's not so much on Bayview and other parts that are larger homes. Do you see that you're going to be setting a precedent that you're going to start increasing it to 50? Then
well, we specifically do not, we're told not to consider precedent. This is a one application, one review on its own, isolated at a as we receive them. So there is no precedent. Yes, that neighborhood being formerly cottages, summer homes, does have a unique characteristics that you don't see throughout the rest of St. Catharines, and there are specific historic and zoning considerations that address those unique characteristics, and all of that would have been the measure that city staff would have used with their proposed recommendations noted in their report. So again, I am certain that all those points are covered as part of the comprehensive review and part of our decision-making process this evening. And I'll invite, I think Scott was speaking to this, if at the end of your questions, Sarah, we'll have Scott also chime in. So is there anything else you wish to add?
He mentioned the $16,000 thing. I read 14,000. Is that being changed due to inflation or something, or unless I misheard?
I may have misquoted it, but $14,000 or $16,000. We'll clarify that.
Okay, those are mainly mine was the lot coverage.
Okay, thank you. Scott, did you have anything in particular you felt could be added to this?
Yeah, just to clarify, I believe the condition speaks to the security deposit for the tree being 14,000. That was the that's what the city's arborist appraised the value of the tree at. Just maybe an error earlier. 14 is what's in the report. And then just on the issue of coverage, one factor that we did consider is the impact of the road widening. So because the city's requiring them to dedicate a good sized strip of land along the frontage of the property, the result is their property is getting smaller, which means the percentage of what's left that's being covered by the building, it goes up. If the city wasn't taking the widening, they would still require variance, but it would be significantly less. It would be, I think, like 42 or something.
Okay.
I mean, that's not a determinative factor, but it is informative to know that it's the increases in part being triggered or at least exacerbated a great deal by the widening. Right. Also, just as a point of reference, there was a severance right across the street from this site at 11 Paxton a few years ago, and on that project, coverage of 52% was approved for that property right across the street as well. So what's being asked on this site is consistent with what was approved right across the street.
Well, be careful now. You're going to undo my whole comment about the fact that we don't set precedent here. It's a one-off thing. So we'll disregard that comment. Thank you very much.
I think that's the one I opposed as well, and it went to.
Well, maybe Scott knows that and is referring to that.
It went to OMB as well.
That's right. Okay. The 52% is what the OMB approved as being approved.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Thanks for that clarification.
Okay.
And the other item is that there are other. I mean, this area, as you described, is certainly characterized by small lots, a very compact built form, and it was the opinion of the planning department that what's being proposed by the applicant is consistent with that character.
And is the road widening going to happen, Chairperson? Please advise.
Yeah, the road widening is going to happen. It's part of this application, and as Scott has alluded to, it's the reason why some of these variances might look a little bit more severe, because the city's insisting. I guess the city weighs whether the value of taking the property, of taking what is currently not their property, and the impact that that's having on this application, and it's a bit of a balance. Judy, you just appeared, so
yeah, I would like to make a comment if I may.
Okay, Judy Piehak, please.
I just want to, on the road widening bit, and this is often a misconception, we sort of float that term around pretty liberally. It is not the pavement width that is generally widened. Usually the city takes a widening to expand the boulevard area so that gives us more leeway for things like boulevard trees and underground utilities if they have to be upgraded. Servicing. It's not, I don't want you to think the city's going and gonna widen the actual pavement width, because that's not at all what will happen there. It's really just for underground services, underground utilities, street trees, and that's pretty much it. So
Okay.
It's not the road itself.
Okay, thank you so much. I think the city should find a better term to describe this rather than road widening, whether it be, but anyway, it is a common misconception. So Sarah, hopefully, Elaine, yes?
I just wanted to also add that the fire department is circulated all the applications.
Okay.
They didn't make any comment on it, but it is circulated. Every application is circulated to them.
Okay, so Sarah, I think that your comments have been addressed, and if it's okay with you, we will proceed with this hearing.
Thank you so much for addressing them.
All right, thanks so much. So does the applicant, having heard the presentations this evening and read the public comments which you addressed in your initial presentation, is there anything that the applicant wishes to add?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. No, I think that's everything. Everyone's covered that off. Beat me to the punch. Thanks.
Good. We can't hear you anyway, so it's good. At this point, are there any questions that any committee member might have of the applicant who's going to speak really loud, or anybody else for that matter? No. Excellent. So we're going to slide right into the motion part of this application. And who would like to take on the challenge? Robin, I couldn't think of anybody more competent.
Or incompetent, we don't know yet.
No, technically speaking.
Technically speaking,
Oh,
a
there
bit
you
of
go,
both. A bit of both. I'm a bit of both. Okay, let's give this a wing-ding. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent application B 2220 SC and variance applications A 4520 and A 4620 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, subject to the many conditions outlined. Yes. Or is it 14?
14.
Yeah, 14 conditions outlined in the technical report, as the consents are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse impact on the surrounding properties, have regard for section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, maintain the intent and purpose of the provincial policy statement, and do not conflict with any applicable provincial plans. And the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
So in summary, the applicant has made significant changes to the original application to lessen the impact. The city staff have recommended a number of conditions which will also further make this project more suitable for the site, and their motion is in support of all of the city's recommendations as well as their approvals. So all of those on the committee who are in favor of the motion. Excellent. So the application has been approved unanimously. So that concludes 2 Paxton Avenue, and we're going to move seamlessly into our third agenda item, which should be 50 Hendrick Avenue for a minor variance. So this is a site that's been developed over a number of years, and they're moving away from the semi-detached to a 5-story condo building, and adjacent to the golf course, a historic community as well as this newer community. And the city has recommended some rewording of the variance for the consideration of the committee and hopefully approval of the applicant to make this a little clearer. So it's all about parking. So does the representative of the applicant or the owner? Oh, right. And I also, there's a big star and an arrow somewhere where Evan is going to have a little preamble to state the city's condition on this position on this application. So Evan, if you could please.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. So the applicants followed our advice when they submitted their application. We initially suggested that they apply for a reduction in required parking by 86 spaces to account for the 86 spaces that did not meet the width requirements of our zoning bylaw. Based on comments that we received, we realized the error in that instruction, with the appearance being that this site was going to be 86 spaces short, which it isn't in staff's opinion. So we have recommended that the wording of the variance be changed so that we aren't reducing parking requirements by 86 spaces. We are reducing the required width for parking stalls that are located adjacent to an obstruction, be that a column or a pillar or a wall, where that obstruction is located within 1.3 meters of either end of a parking stall. The minimum parking space width shall be 2.6 meters. So there's change in the wording, but the result is going to be the same, that there's 86 spaces that do not meet our current parking stall requirements in our zoning bylaw, but staff is satisfied based on the documentation that is being submitted by the applicants and a thorough review by not just planning staff, but also staff in our transportation services division, that all 86 of those parking stalls can still normally function as any other parking stall can.
Great. I think that this is a huge...
Judy, if Judy has anything she wants to add to expand on what I said, I'm happy for corrections.
Well, I'm going to expand on it right now in that it's the significance of the wording is a huge improvement over previous applications where it appears as though parking is non-existent, whereas here we're saying it's the sizes, they're there, but the sizes are reduced. So that should hopefully alleviate the following speakers who might have issues over parking, in that we are adjusting stall widths, not saying that because they don't meet the minimum requirement, they don't exist. So excellent. Judy?
No, I think you both wrapped it up fine. I'm really here for if any further
moral support.
Moral support, yes.
All right.
And to answer questions if need be.
So, but that does not mean though that the applicant is not here though, right? We are going to hear from Stephen Bedford.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Careful, there's a coconut loose in that tree. It might fall off and hit you, so just watch out for that.
Oh, I've been dodging coconuts for a while here.
Right. So please contribute to the conversation with anything you wish to add over and above what we've read in our staff report.
I shall. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, staff, and neighbors. My name is Stephen Bedford. I'm planner on this file and represent with Landex and representing the owners. With me this evening are Nick Palumba and Adam Millenberger, who are with RVA Associates, who are technical traffic experts that we have engaged. Thank you, Evan, for your clarification, and Judy for your moral support of Evan. It's really unfortunate this misunderstanding occurred. I can imagine that if in my neighborhood, if I thought an apartment building was going to be built with 86 less parking spaces, I too would have been very concerned. One should know, and the committee should be aware, that these lands have been zoned for apartments since 2007. Since that time, On-street homes have been built, condominium townhouses have been built, and we're now proposing to complete this development with the construction of this apartment building. A lot of the concerns that the neighbors have raised with respect to the development of this site have been discussed over the last couple of years in detail. Most recently, in June of 2019, the Director of Planning did address all of the concerns with a report to council. And we're proceeding on the basis of all of the technical information has been covered off, and we will certainly ensure that the conditions that are in the site plan agreement will be met. So this variance application is not about parking space numbers. With 253 units, 316 spaces are required. We are providing 320 spaces. The concern is that 86 of those spaces don't meet the technical requirements of the dimensions of a parking that are now in the zoning bylaw. The city has recognized that their bylaw is out of date with respect to these situations and are in the process of reviewing their bylaw. However, at this time, they haven't come forward with a proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and therefore we've applied for this variance. We've engaged R.V. Anderson Associates to evaluate the situation and comment and prepare a report with respect to functionality and consistency with zoning bylaws in other municipalities. I'd like to ask that Nick Palumba at this time give you some clarification with respect to their findings so that you might be comfortable in approving this recommendation. Nick?
Thank you, Stephen. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and members of the public that are present, R.V. Anderson was asked to provide a review and advice and or opinion on the situation that we were speaking about today. The city bylaw currently requires parking spaces to be 2.6 meters wide, except when they have an obstruction adjacent to them. The term obstruction within the bylaw is not clear, is not defined. And as part of our work, what we did is we did look at bylaws and interpretations by other municipalities. The term obstruction refers to an object, whether it's a bollard or column, a railing, something that would, when a vehicle's within that parking spot, affect the way the occupants of the vehicle could open their doors to enter and exit. So I'm sure lots of people have parked in underground parking lots where you're next to a wall. Obviously, the wall creates an impediment to you. So the intent of the city bylaw is when you do have an object that is adjacent to your stall, not within your stall, so it doesn't affect the overall width. The stall width is as per the standard bylaw. There was a requirement to add 0.4 meters to the width. What we did is we've looked at other municipalities. So if you take a look at the City of Toronto, City of Toronto has a similar requirement, except when they say obstruction, they refer to where is the obstruction. So if the obstruction is near the front of the vehicle or the end of the vehicle or the front of the stall, the end of the stall, it won't interfere with the operation of the doors. You'll still have the same amount of room to swing as you would on all your other spaces, and therefore they don't deem that an obstruction and require additional width. When we review the site plan proposed for this site for the non-conforming spaces that are being discussed, we found that the obstructions are columns. These columns have a defined size and they're located at the front of the parking spaces. So again, when you look at that, they're within that first meter to meter, 1.3, 1.4 meters of the stall. And when a vehicle is parked in there, it would not have their function in terms of people accessing or egressing the vehicle impacted. So the columns for this particular site are not obstructing the entrance of the cars into the stalls, because the stalls that are being provided are to city standard, and they're not obstructing the opening or closing of doors. And so with our review of this, we determined that the 86 parking stalls that are provided are fully functional. They are to city standard width, less the requirement for 0.4 meters when there's a physical obstruction. And we would recommend that the Committee of Adjustment approve this variance, as there is no impact in the operation functionality of the report of the stalls. Also in the report, City Transportation Services has reviewed the memorandum we put together presenting this information and our rationale, and are supportive of that in the sense that they make the statement again that the stalls will remain fully functional. And Stephen, I won't repeat it, but also has identified that city staff is in the process of amending their bylaw to better provide, I guess, a clear definition of these particular situations. At this point, I conclude my presentation and be open for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bedford, do you have anything else you wish to add? I think I would like to have someone, either you or a city, talk about the reason why we're not looking for any, there's no rezoning going on here, because the current zoning bylaw allows for such a creature.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the zoning bylaw for an apartment building on this site was originally approved in 2007. It was amended in 2018 as we added a property on Herrick that was added to the property. So the proposed apartment meets the zoning bylaw. The only situation we're dealing with now, when we found out when we were dealing with a review by the city of the site plans for the site plan agreement, was this issue around parking space.
Sure. No, I think it's important.
The only outstanding issue.
No, it's important to bring this up. And also the site plan, the zoning amendment, that would have been a public process at the time, I believe, in 2018.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm trying to set the stage for what I'm anticipating is going to be some questions that the citizens, local people, are going to have. And perhaps at this point, we want to hear from Gilles Marceau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So
my name
just before you speak, I want to just summarize that the application is only for the reduction in the parking stall widths of those 80 some odd units, cars, and it's not a discussion. There's nothing in this application regarding the fact that this is a 5-story condo building, and whether, you know, the scale of it and so on, because it does in fact meet the zoning bylaw. So we're hoping that your comments will be related specifically to the application, which is talking about the parking stall width reduction. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's exactly what we're going to talk about.
Great.
And I want you to know that the citizens of our community strongly oppose this variance. I should share with you that I live on Woodburn Avenue, and I'm one of the founding members of the Woodburn Herrick Residents Committee. We've been at this since May of 2018. Sounds like 1919. We believe that our case is well developed in our community submission on January the 18th. However, we want to address now the technical report that was issued 2 days later from the city's Planning and Building Services Department. This report certainly confirms the statement contained in our submission that there is a lack of clarity of the city's planning process. And now through this report, we have the answer as to why this variance. City staff want the variance to be reworded so whether or not the parking space is open or obstructed by a wall or a pillar, both have the same width of 2.6 meters, as opposed to the bylaw today, which is 3.0 meters if there's one obstruction, or 3.5 meters when obstructed on two sides. City staff wants to change the rules on the fly because the 86 spaces being discussed do not presently meet the current bylaw due to width. Now, that's interesting. Is city staff stating that this bylaw is difficult for Marydale due to the fact that they're building on a wetland? I don't know. City staff justifies its position in this technical report that in other municipalities, their required width is relaxed and that, quotes, the doors could still be open on most models of cars. You know what? What does most models of cars mean? Let's understand what's being stated here. The City of St. Catharines Planning Department staff is affirming in writing through this official technical report that the current bylaw is too restrictive when it comes to width. Okay. City staff then informs us, the citizens of this community, that they're working on a staff-initiated zoning bylaw amendment to address this width problem. Well, we suggest that since this is a council decision, staff should present to council their intended modifications. City council will then have to decide if residents of the city should be given the opportunity to express their opinions due to the extensive development that's going all around our city. As a committee, we ask ourselves, is this request premature? As we see it, here's the crux of the city's argument. Let's simply have, through this minor variance, we don't think it's a minor variance, 86 non-compliant parking spaces, because after all, the City of St. Catharines planning staff disagree with our current bylaw. Let's make the decision on our own to reduce the width of parking stalls because it is the only way, perhaps, that the developer can maximize his or her profit, and therefore the city can maximize its tax revenue. I'd like to also talk about the city staff's justification in the report. Marydale, the developer, hired the professional consulting firm, RV Anderson. And guess what? They also reported that the 86 parking stalls are deficient in width, but they go on to say they can fully function as parking stalls. So we as a committee ask ourselves this: is this an opinion or is there evidence which backs up the statement? Have they identified the trends that still favor SUVs and car sales are suffering? How does the size shift affect parking stall sizes? To further justify their position, they talk about having talked to other Ontario municipalities and have found that, quotes, 4 municipalities, Ottawa, Brantford, Halton Hills, and Caledon, view 2.5 meters okay with an obstruction. Okay, so based on that and other municipal bylaws, it's recommended that the proposed variance be accepted by our city. Perhaps we ask ourselves, other municipalities they could find other municipalities who currently think like St. Catharines. This study was paid for by the developer. We are very suspicious. Is this consulting firm simply acting as hired guns to force this variance to go through? City staff also have a bias supporting the developer at citizen expense. There's a pattern of breaking bylaws and not addressing taxpayer concerns. Let me share evidence. Evidence is what's important. This same developer constructed fencing, I guess they're called a hoarding wall, which does not meet city bylaws with respect to height, that being 1.3 feet or 0.4 meters too high. When brought to the attention of city staff, there was an agreement that it did not meet city bylaws. Their recommendation is, if we as citizens wanted to have Marydale meet the bylaw, the city would ask them to do so. We asked ourselves, what happened to all stakeholders complying with bylaws? Are there 2 sets of rules, one for us and one for developers? We ask ourselves, why is the city planning department not upholding the zoning bylaw? Citizens were given a solid commitment from the city in July the 9th and July the 13th, 2018 public meetings. The planning department actually submitted the following. Quotes, "At no time will construction be permitted to take place that does not provide adequate parking in accordance with the zoning bylaw." The current bylaw, not the future one being created by city staff. And who knows, the city council will approve it in the future. Please, let's deal with what's in place. City staff must live with current bylaws, whether it pleases them or not. Otherwise, the citizens are not being fairly treated. And 86 undersized, non-compliant underground parking stalls represents 26% of the required number of stalls. We don't think that's can be considered minor. Let me finish, please.
There is a time limit, so please summarize.
I am. Why should residents, current and future, be potentially parking impaired for as long as they live in the community? Most cars means some cars are going to end up on our streets. Bylaws are created and implemented to better serve our communities, whether it be Heritage Point or Port to Housing. We urge you not to approve this variance.
Thank you. So I'm just going to start, as I usually do, with some of my observations, and then ask people to either confirm or correct me. The whole purpose of this committee is for variances of existing bylaws. So that's why we exist, and that's why there are 9 applications this evening, with most other applications asking for variances of a certain one nature or another. So this is a mechanism and a procedure, a public procedure, that does consider the applicant's request. It's not a city request but they are reviewing the applicant's request. The applicant is asking for relief from the parking width minimum for against an obstruction, and the applicant is looking only for that in this application. The city report, which the committee members have and the community has received, has reviewed that with respect to the zoning bylaw, and they've made their interpretation as to whether they feel it is minor in nature, and are recommending to us to consider in our deliberation this evening, as we are considering your comments, the future presenters' comments, and the written comments which we received as part of our package. So that's what we do, is we vary zoning bylaws depending on whether or not we deem them to meet the 4 tests that we evaluate them through. I can tell, so that's that. And of course, when the city establishes something as fixed as the width of a parking stall, that doesn't mean that they're considering a smart car or a Ford F-150 parking in there. It means they're considering that there's some variation in vehicles that this hard number has to accommodate. And if we all drove smart cars, it would be, then we wouldn't have to be having this conversation at all. But some of us drive Ford F-150s. So in the very specific nature of that number, 6.2 or 3 meters, the applicant appears to be asking us to consider for the portion of parking stalls that don't meet that requirement, will we consider that a minor variance in the application? So that is my summary of why the applicant is here, how the city has reviewed it, and how this evening we are all going to review it and come up with a solution. So I fully understand that this is not, in the 12 or so years that I've been on the committee, and as an architect, parking is always a big deal with respect to a project, and it's something that is very much a part of the zoning bylaw, and there's a lot of words and a big section in the zoning bylaw which specifically addresses parking. So it's understood your concerns, and as best as a human being can write bylaws to try and capture every instance, this is why we're here today, is to look at this particular instance. So thank you for that. Is there any, as a result of some of the points that the speaker has made, is there any questions from the committee members that they would like clarified? No? Okay. So thank you so much. We have 4 or so more people wishing to speak. Kelly Glasner, you're next on the list. You are currently muted.
Hi there. Hi. Thank you very much.
Sorry, before you start, the idea is that you'll be adding to the conversation we already had and not necessarily repeating what we've already discussed. Thank you.
My name is Kelly Glasner. My home is at 28 Woodburn Avenue. My property abuts 50 Herrick. I'm an active member of the Woodburn Herrick Residents Committee. Just off the top, just letting you know that I'm looking forward to the completion of this development behind my home. But I'm just concerned that we're starting off with a minor variance and it doesn't seem minor. We haven't even dug yet and we're already asking for a variance for properly sized parking stalls. And I guess this whole thing, well, in Toronto, hey, I didn't bring my Toronto bylaws with me and assume that St. Catharines has got the same ones, or when I lived in Niagara on the Lake. We're concerned that, yes, parking is convoluted. There are a lot of words, but it just doesn't seem like a very good way to start. So why is a new building starting with parking issues?
If I may, the important thing is this is how every project starts, and it's the only time that that these variances are reviewed. So there's no, I can assure you that there's no accumulation of, oh, we got this one and there'll be a next one. If this is what the applicant is looking for, that clears the way for them to start the building permit application process. So there's no continuum of this.
Okay, well, we are concerned. And the fact that you have to buy parking spots as well, in addition to paying for the unit, we're concerned that there's going to be a lot of street parking. And if people feel that the parking is undersized for whatever reason, and this is the land of F-150s, that we're concerned about street parking, and maybe that is going to have to be some new bylaws brought in for that, because we don't want to have people parking on our streets in front of our homes indefinitely. Herrick Avenue doesn't even have have sidewalks. People are parking in the craziest ways. And that's just I live on the corner of Herrick. So.
Okay, so your concern, unlike the previous citizen, you're actually, well, I mean, I guess you're reinforcing their other concern about street parking, largely because, and in condo arrangements, my understanding is it's not uncommon that you buy the condo and you buy the parking spot, but you feel that might be a hindrance for some people who would choose to not buy a parking stall that's available to them, but instead park on the street.
Yes, and a lot of, while the city has a 1.25 spaces per household, in our immediate neighborhood, we're finding that people have got 2 cars per household. So maybe somebody will buy one and then they will just park their other car here. And St. Catharines bylaws do not, unlike Toronto, where I could report the junk man who parked forever and ever and ever beside my house, and and nobody could park. None of my guests could park when they were visiting me, because we're not protected. St. Catharines bylaws are different.
Is there anything else you wish to add?
Let me take a look. Yeah, I guess we're just asking, this is a new build. I understand variances, but can you please make sure there are enough parking spots? Please.
Okay.
We live here.
You made your point very, very well. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Edson Matos, who wants to address the committee.
Yes, good evening. Thank you very much for allowing me to express my ideas and my concerns. My concern about this project is that there will be no enough parking spaces for all the units according to the city bylaws. I'm not concerned if the parking spaces will be smaller than what they should be or not, because if people wants to buy or to buy these spaces and park their cars, it's going to be their issue, their problem. If they accept to buy 2 meters space to park their car, it's up to them. What is our concern is that the project, according to the city bylaws, the parking space per unit should be 1.25. And if the builder intends to build 253 condo units, it should be, if the builder is intending to build 253 units, they should be providing parking spaces, 1.25 parking spaces for all the units, okay, to accommodate all these units. And this is not what we are looking at. I believe that the project is being the builder is asking for a minor variance and focusing on getting the approval based on just reducing the width of certain parking spaces, but nobody is looking at the minimum number of parking spaces that would be required in this project.
Okay, Edson, I'm gonna interrupt you right there, because with that one point that you've made, we can address that right now. There is a metric, and you have correctly stated, at 1.25 vehicles per dwelling unit. And this application is not asking for a reduction in the overall number of parking stalls. Not that I have noticed. So I can quickly, thank you. I can quickly perhaps have the city, one of the city planners, so that they're not biased by the applicant, confirm that the actual number of stalls meets the zoning requirement.
Okay, I would appreciate to hear that. I would appreciate to hear the number of units that will be approved and the number of parking spaces that will be approved, just to make sure that they will have at least 125.
Okay, so we're gonna, you just hold on a second. We're gonna, I think Evan looks like he's eager to participate in this.
Yeah, so thank you, Chair Redden. So the building has 253 units. Parking requirement is 1.25 spaces per unit, which comes out to 316 required parking spaces. The applicant is providing 320, with the point noted that 86 of them, as of right now, do not meet the current width requirement, and
yes,
this variance is seeking that reduction in the width requirement so that there are 320 parking spaces on the site.
And of those parking spaces, which is a little bit over what's required, there's a certain ratio of those which are also considered to be AODA compliant accessible stalls. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And so the I don't have that number up on hand right now, but they are meeting that required accessibility parking stall.
Thank you. So Edson, just if you have other points, just wanted to confirm. I wanted to confirm for you with that affirmation that the applicant is providing at least the minimum parking number of parking stalls required, and actually it sounds like a bit more. So that's hopefully assists you.
Yes. Okay. As long as everybody will have their own parking space, or enough parking space will be provided, nobody would be supposedly parking on the streets, because if that's the case, we don't have room. There is no way, there is no infrastructure here, not even for 10 cars parked on the street.
Understood. The expectation would be for me, if I was, I'm not sure how much these are selling for, but if I was buying a unit and I had to carry my groceries a half a block through the snow in order to get to the front door, that would not be a desirable situation for me to want to buy there. So you know, the concern about parking on the street and then walking across the entire parking lot to the front door is something that most of us would not put up with. So is there any additional point you want to clarify with respect to your?
No, I am pleased with all the answers and all the clarifications. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're going to move along to Leslie Seaborn, who would like to speak to the application. Again, I'm just trying to remember to say that, we're trying to add to the conversation we've already had, not necessarily revisit points. So Leslie, please unmute yourself and and speak to us.
Hello, thank you, Chair, and thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to speak today. I think you're realizing a little bit that this is definitely a hot issue that has been going on for many years now. And I think Kelly Glassner definitely did highlight that there is serious ramifications if we go forward with accepting this application. I want to be clear to everybody. The community definitely wants the development of this final project. We all want to see an end to the development in our subdivision. That's not the issue. What we're concerned about is whether we're I mean the developer, the city, the Committee of Adjustments, and the community, are we all focused on what is best overall to minimize risk and maximize safety? That is what this is all about. We want to work with the developer. I'm a bit concerned. I think I almost have to ask the Committee of Adjustments at this point to try and think a little bit outside the box of your criteria of where your decision lines are, because this is not just a cut and dry situation where the developer's asking for a minor variance and you guys keep saying the same thing that I've already heard in other applications today, that as long as it meets the certain criteria, which is it doesn't adversely affect and that type of thing, then our role is simply to grant their request for a minor variance. There's so much more going on here. This is not a minor variance in any way. And we are reaching out to you to help us bring this back to where it needs to be brought to, which is back to city council, back to the city planners, back to the community, back to the developers. I know the developer is trying to get things done. They have come up with some ideas, but they're fixated on bylaws from Toronto, and it's easier for them to come before the Committee of Adjustments for a minor variance instead of honoring the bylaws that are in place. If the city in the future feels that we need to make some amendments to the official plan, to city bylaws, that's got to come before city council. So sorry?
It does, you're correct.
Okay, and so it's very important that we don't talk about what might be, but what is. And I have all the respect to these developers, and I have all the respect to the Committee of Adjustments and city staff, but way of thinking. This is critical. If I might refer to my notes a little bit here, this definitely is an adverse effect, will have an adverse effect, because people will be looking to park on the streets to save $7,500 more for a second parking spot. They will. And for us to say, well, I wouldn't buy over there if they're going to make me go over to the streets and move all my groceries a mile away. That's not the point. So, or if it is the point, we're not helping the developer then. We're helping the developer build something that they can't sell because it's not sellable based on these circumstances. So we've got to start thinking a little bit more out of the box and take this very seriously. Our community speaks from experience. We have very knowledgeable, educated, experienced community members, some of which you've heard today. And no doubt you're hearing the stress from them because it has been an ongoing battle. But we have provided city staff and council affidavits from elders of our community who know all too well what's going on in this subdivision, what's going on underground. Now, I get they're asking for a minor variance, and you're going to say to me, there is another very serious issue here, and this is where I come in. I say this is a premature application because there's a far more serious matter that has not been rectified at the city level, city council level, or through the developer. And that's the issue of a natural spring-fed pond that we definitely have here, and we are working very hard to. We're not doing this for out of our the goodness of our hearts. We're trying to forewarn people. We have had past experience where on the north side of Herrick, when the other developer developed there, they hit underground mills that flooded the area, flooded the existing townhomes, put them in dire straits. And who helped to rectify their flooding situations and their ongoing sub pump issues today? Nobody. City says that's a civil action. We got to get this all back in the right order. Now we got the same problem on the south side of Herrick, a bigger problem.
Leslie, I have
sorry,
to sort of focus you back to the parking, because as much as you think we have the freedom to think outside the box, we don't. These are the bylaws that govern zoning are not unlike traffic laws or building laws. They establish a baseline, and the 4 tests that each committee member considers when making a motion are in fact specific to the very specific bylaw. So in fairness to every application, we don't have a whole lot of room to sway from our measure, because then it would be completely a personal decision by each committee member, as opposed to adhering to a set of rules. So the developer has to build and design to a set of rules. If they ask for changes from the set of rules, we have to consider that ask with respect to those set of rules. So I just wanted to clarify, that we can't. There is no. The box is drawn for us.
Okay, Greg, I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Right. I hear what you're saying, Greg. And you've also got to realize, though, this is a long going, drawn out process for us all. And there is personal issues going on. But I will try and stay more curtailed. But you do need to think a little bit out of this box, because they are coming to you to find an easier way to get a minor variance to do what they want to do to meet the bylaws of the city that they're from. But this is going to be an adverse effect on us. Like I said, the people that buy over there, they're not going to buy additional parking space. They're going to go to the street. We already have an undeveloped Herrick Street. Doesn't even have sidewalks and curbs. I don't know if the community adjustments is aware of that. So by the time, and it is proposed, I mean, it is planned, I should say, scheduled, that we will have finished roads on Herrick Street. We will have curbs, we will have sidewalks. That's really going to do away with the crazy parking we're already witnessing on Herrick Street. That is going to get worse. Greg, you're trying to cut in, but let me finish.
We have a long meeting, and you haven't made any new points. So you need. I'd like you to add to the conversation by creating a new point.
Well, I think I'm trying to use the phrases that you as the Committee of Adjustments use, which is it does have a serious adverse effect on parking issues, on traffic flow, bottom line, on safety. What is your other key phrase? It will become undesirable, both for people that buy the condo units, because like you said, Greg, who's going to want to go park over a block away and then bring their groceries into the condo unit? It will become it will be undesirable to sell. It will be undesirable and unlivable for us to live in, because we're struggling with the traffic flow and parking as it is. All I want to say in conclusion here is I want to work with the developer. We want to work with the developer. We want to work with their engineers. I'm not an engineer, but we have serious underlying issues that they are not presenting. City staff has not presented. And that is the long outstanding question, is what's happened to the supplementary report on the natural spring-fed pond that the mayor and the former director of planning, Jim Riddell, said we will not pave over a natural spring-fed pond. Work with us, people, communicate with us, and we would be gladly here to support you. But right now, this is definitely an adverse impact to our community. It is definitely undesirable. And please, 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 committee adjustments, don't move quickly on this one. There's a lot going on behind closed doors that we need to bring to the forefront for everybody to enjoy the bottom line at the end of the day. We want a beautiful development. I've got ideas to help these developers make everything work. There are other, oh, sorry.
I'm
Sorry.
gonna have to
Yeah.
cut you off there because there's a takeaway from what you said. It's the reoccurring new thing added, and that's the subterranean water table and the possibility of this spring. And I will go back to the applicant and ask at this point, has geotechnical work been done that identifies not necessarily, well, the soil type and suitability for the supporting this building, but also any groundwater issues, because those are all cost considerations that you'd have to deal with anyway. So is there any geotechnical information that you have reviewed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, of course, we've done our geotechnical work that covers off the issues that have been proposed. And we have submitted that work to the city. The city director of planning did submit a report, as I mentioned, last year, 2019, excuse me, covering off all of the issues that continue to be raised. And from a staff perspective and our technical perspective, all of the issues with respect and the conservation authority's perspective, all the issues that are being raised have been covered off.
Okay, thank you. So for the city's perspective, I'd like to have a city planner confirm that someone in the city has reviewed the geotechnical report or will be reviewing it in the further stages of the project. And if anybody on current city planning staff has any familiarity with the history that was referenced by Leslie on this site with respect to disturbing existing groundwater paths.
So maybe I can address that,
Judy?
Chair. Couple points I want to make. The only issue before the committee tonight is the reduction of a parking space width. That's it. That's all that's before the committee. The other issues are matters for other jurisdictions. There's been a number of studies submitted. There will be more studies required as part of the building permit process and the geotechnical study and any hydrogeology reports that may have to be prepared and reviewed. That's all subject to other processes. So I hear what the public is saying. We've heard this before on many occasions, and at the right point in time, those matters will be addressed. This is not the place for those discussions today.
So in fairness to the public's concerns, though, this is the first time they've had this is a public process this evening, and they are able to bring up all of their concerns now, which goes beyond the parking. At any point in the future of the advancement of this project, will there be any more process for the public to be made aware of what's
There
going
will
on?
be. As part of the site plan approval process, we will be bringing back the final site plan before it gets approved for the information of the public, and that's a forum where they can bring these issues forward.
Okay, so Leslie, back to you. I'm hoping that you feel that you have been heard, and the takeaway that I brought forward for more elaboration was your issues about underground water, which again, as Judy pointed out, is something that can be reviewed at some other time. Our mandate really is that tight box of looking at parking and the parking stall adjustments that the applicant is asking for. So
I do appreciate that, Mr. Chair, that you've reached out to both the developer and the city for clarification on the status of the geotechnical report. But I would like to go on record that the August 2019 report did not address the issue of the pond, and I've read it. Trust me, I've read it. It does not. And we have evidence to confirm that city was looking for a further study to be done in January 2020. I confirm in August 2020 that a subsequent report investigation was done on behalf of the developer. And that report, as I understand it from speaking to the planning department, they have not received that report of August 2020, which is the supplemental investigative report after they realized this was not merely that there's some strong evidence based on well, there's a lot of evidence they already have to confirm it is a natural flowing spring-fed water, and that there is a natural creek called Carter's Creek running underneath. We provide all that evidence subsequent, and they have not produced the August 2020 subsequent report. And I'm wondering, help us. I am in a situation.
They will have an obligation. They will have an obligation to respond to, as a citizen of the city. The city hall is there for you to as a resource, and your counselor is there as an avenue to access this sort of information. So
we've all requested it. I'm using this forum, Mr. Chair, to let you to go on record that we have not been told what the outcome of the August 2020 report is.
Okay,
but I will stay back with what Judy said. Bottom line, for the Committee of Adjustments, definitely this does have an undesirable to the buyers, to the community that already lives there, and
yes, thank you.
And a detriment.
Out of respect to the rest of the applications, we have to move on. Thank you. I appreciate you have made your points time and again. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have one final person to speak to this application, and that's Tiffany, whose video comes on and off a couple times. I see, Tiffany, that you're waiting right now. You're muted and your video is off. We request that both the video and okay, good.
Sorry,
Bye.
just in the middle of doing a few things around here. My apologies. So I'm Tiffany Brzezowski. I'm the owner of 60 Woodburn Avenue. I'm a first-time home buyer, and I've worked approximately 3 to 4 jobs to be able to purchase this home on my own.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I want to speak to the concerns. I know that Elaine was very generous in saying not to repeat, so I've really kind of crossed out and written some notes, so if you don't mind bearing with me. I do want to thank you to the chair. I didn't know those were volunteer positions, so thank you for your time and for everyone who spoke today. I want to speak to the street parking concerns that's within our streets. There's already heightened tension with neighbors about parking, and there's been issues where neighbors have threatened to call the police on other neighbors. So we do have the struggle already with the flow and parking, as well as traffic, cars just kind of flying through. Again, that doesn't really address the parking. So I'm just going to say that the street parking concerns across the street from our homes is already full at the end of every evening. There is absolutely no parking spaces right now from across the street from where I live. The second one, the hindrance of people not buying a parking spot due to the cost. Typically, as we saw on average about the cars per household, we can definitely see that most homes in the area already have 2 cars. So that's why there is a struggle with the parking and the flow. Hopefully this can be redirected with the parking spots, but we're hoping that this can get addressed. In terms of Leslie Seaborn talking about the natural spring-fed pond, I know that's another issue, but there is a lot of wonderful wildlife that we really do appreciate and enjoy. Just taking a look in behind me, I had a difficulty doing the test run with Elaine because she said she wasn't able to see me. And in the background, there's a fence that I wasn't able to kind of get the sunlight right on my computer. Luckily, you can see me now. But due to the fence that's already over regulation limits that hasn't been taken care of, this is just one of many issues. I know that Stephen Bedford said that this is the only outstanding issue is parking, which was his 4th point. However, Judy said that the only issue tonight is parking. So I find that there's an inconsistency in what one person is saying for the other. If the only outstanding issue is parking, I completely disagree, and I don't feel that that is the case. As Greg had mentioned about carrying groceries in the snow, I feel that if people are only buying 1 parking spot, they might even just drop off the groceries at the door and then go and park. So I find that that might be something that people do, so they're not walking through the snow. But even if, let's say, people buy either the full allotment or just 1, we do need to consider that it's 253 units, And of these 253 units, people are going to have family, friends, visitors, and possibly overnight staying guests at any given time. So if we're not even considering the people using and utilizing the parking spaces that live there, what about the people that have guests visiting them? So that's 253, just giving that each household at any one given time, one additional person. That is where our concern also lies. So not only parking for the people living in the building, but also people that they accommodate, family, friends, neighbors, visiting as well. So I'd like to just mention that. Also finding that the pond is a selling feature. It was a selling feature for myself in purchasing it. And I find that the developer could definitely have people buying in more so, taking into consideration keeping this. Hopefully environmentally it is kept, but again, the developer has said they've looked into these forms and have the most up to date, which I have yet to see. I know that our committee did ask for them. So that was just another concern that I have. I'm hoping that Stephen Bedford and Judy can be on the same page. However, I do want to say that there is other outstanding issues, one being the fence, being 1.3 meters too high. That's actually blocking our appreciation of the pond as it stands right now. And
if I may just touch on that right now, is there any confirmation that this fence has been pointed out by the community to the city and the developer, and it has not yet been resolved? Because it certainly would be a show of goodwill if the developer or whoever's responsible for this fence could get it down. Sorry, Gil, we're just gonna just wait, have my question answered. It would certainly be a show of goodwill if someone could address this issue if it hasn't been properly and formally brought to the city. So I know it's nothing to do with parking, but no, please someone take care of that fence. And just while Tiffany's other point, visitor parking. So 1.25. Other than the smart car that I owned, which is you could arguably a 0.25 car, there are no 0.25 cars. So that 25%. So the city bylaw requires, I believe, one parking stall, parking per dwelling unit, and the 0.25 that's applied to multi-unit residences is to anticipate those who might have two cars and or visitors. And I'll just quickly have confirmation from one of the city planners that that is in fact the case.
Yes, Chair Redden, we don't actually break down that 0.25 has to be allotted for visitors, but say a single detached dwelling, our minimum parking requirement is only one space. So you can deduce from that yes, perhaps the 0.25 is for overflow visitors, any auxiliary parking that may be required on site.
Okay, thank you. So Tiffany, those 2 points were what I've heard so far in your presentation. I just want to address them now. If you have additional points to be made, please continue.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think Jill was waving because yes, the fence has been addressed. Has it been taken care of? Absolutely not. Just in behind, it keeps on getting mowed over with the weeds, and some of them are actually noxious weeds, so they should be taken out, but they're growing in under, I wouldn't even call it a fence, it's just plyboard that's kind of nailed up, and actually the nails are sticking out. So just having anyone, family members, obviously it's COVID, but when you could have visits outside, I had to be careful with additional family because the nails are just directly put in. They didn't actually hammer them down. So that is a concern, having young children around, which I don't have young children, but they do visit, and other neighbors do have young children. So that is a difficulty there.
Okay. Is there any other point you'd like to make specifically to the parking stall reduction? Because I have to focus you in on that, and we have, out of respect for all the other people waiting to speak this evening, I'd like you to summarize at this point.
I'm sorry about that. Just to summarize, again, addressing the parking issues, the traffic flow, the safety, everything being undesirable, also working very interested in working with the developer. It's always good to have new developments and new prospects, but we do need to consider the negative downfalls as well. Even though it may affect the community and it may affect the developer themselves, we need to make sure that we're all on the same page to work together to make it work.
Excellent. That's a fantastic way to end public discussion about this particular matter, because I have heard through most people's presentations that they're not, they are in favor generally of a development. It's the relaxing of the rules that is being asked that they are unsure about, and what the impact that might have on them, people who have lived on the streets in that community for years, to accommodate this development and the new people who are living here. And I apologize if my anecdotal stories about people and groceries and parking and snow causes any confusion. I just know that there's that downtown retailers can't get people to shop downtown, because if you can't park in front of their door to get in the building, people won't do it. And I guarantee in my heart of hearts and common sense that people will not park on the street and carry their groceries in through snow. However, that is please do not focus on that. That's just a speculation. So at this point, the applicant has been brought in during some of this conversation. I would like to ask them if they have any specific, other than to say we're talking only about parking. The committee knows that. We know what the application is. We are unfortunately focused on just that one task. So Stephen, do you have anything you wish to add?
I just want to clarify, and I'll ask Nick to follow up. We are not asking to reduce the size of parking spaces.
Well,
we are really defining what an obstacle is.
Yes, that's understood. You know, that no more discussions required on that. It's the other side of the conversation, but the same conversation.
So based on that, I believe what we're asking for is minor in nature, is appropriate under the circumstances, and certainly meets the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. And we would ask that the committee approve the variances.
Okay, excellent summary on the applicant's end. Good discussion all around. Is there any member of the committee at this point who has anything they want to ask of anybody? No. Oh, Adam, yes. You're muted, just to remind you. Yeah.
Sorry, just through you to planning, is there any requirement by the city to guarantee street parking in any neighborhood?
So this is a question to planning about guaranteed street parking.
Chair Redden, I'll speak to that. No, typically on-street parking is for public parking. So it's open to anybody, first come, first served. It could be you that lives in the house where the parking is available in front of your house. It could be your neighbor. It could be, it's general public parking. The only time where it would become exclusive parking to a specific dwelling unit is if there were a parking permit issued for that dwelling for on-street parking. That is rarely done in the city. There might be a couple streets where that happens, but generally, no. On-street parking is general public parking, and it's not exclusive to any individual dwelling, save and except a parking permit that's been issued.
Adam, is that suitable to your question? An answer to your question?
Mr. Chairman, there was.
We're finished. We're moving on to the. If there's anything really suitable to the conversation that needs to be said, whoever is talking, who I can't see.
It's Stephen.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Steve. Yes.
And the only thing I was going to add is the units are selling very well, and all of the units, all the people are buying parking spaces.
How much are the units selling for? Just out of curiosity.
Actually, I don't know. I only
know. Okay. Well, I'm not in the market anyhow. Okay, they're selling very well. Again, that's not. Okay, thank you. So the committee, who would like to take on David Ringler? This is right up your alley.
I just want to say, Greg, evidence, evidence, evidence.
Thank you, Leslie. Don't make me mute you. Okay, David.
An interesting discussion. Understanding that the residents are concerned about this project and concerned that there are issues related to this project that they feel are not being addressed. Given that this project meets all council-approved bylaws, including the required number of parking spaces, with the exception of potential parking stall size issues, and will be subject to site plan agreement with the city that will include a public process, I believe I heard Judy say, before it can proceed, and understanding that this meeting is only able to address the parking size issue and has no authority relating to the final approval of this project, I move that variance application A0221 be revised from a reduction of the minimum required 316 parking spaces to 233 spaces, revised to a reduction of the parking space width from the required 3 meters where there is an obstruction on one side, which applies to all 86 parking stalls in question, to 2.6 meters where the obstruction, column, pillar, etc., is located within 1.3 meters of either end of a parking space. I believe that this recognition of a space that's going to be used because it can be and creates the opportunity for the doors to open and proper egress, that despite the obstructions, the 86 parking spaces are fully recognized and usable at the standard parking width of 2.6 meters and results in all required 316 spaces being recognized and functional. As the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. I further move that, having considered the rewording of the requested variance, that no further notice be required under the Planning Act.
Thank you. Very concise. Among the committee members only, is there any discussion required before voting on the motion? No? Okay. So, and I also want to remind that the citizens, as we said in the preamble beginning of the meeting, regardless of what we decide, you have the local area planning tribunal process to follow our decision. All those in favor of the motion? So the application has been approved unanimously. Evan, yes? You voting, or what do you want to talk to me about?
Greg, I just want to make a point to the staff's recommendation that no further notice be given. That's only in terms of the rewording of the recommendation. Notice of decision will still be circulated as required.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, so that was a good discussion. I don't know if the outcome is necessarily deemed to be good by everybody, but it was a good discussion. Thank you all who participated. I'm lost. Henry Street?
Greg,
No.
could we have a
yes. Given the duration, the late start and the long duration we've had without a break, perhaps we'll take, I don't know, 5 minutes, give or take, for a drink of water and or what else. So is there an official way of doing that? Do we just mute ourselves and leave and come back at 7:28 or 29? Elaine?
Yes.
Okay, so we're
Come
going to
back
do
5 minutes.
So we'll call it, anyway, in 5 minutes, 7:28, we'll resume the meeting. I need some water. Okay, wakey, wakey, everybody. Okay, I think that we have the committee all here. Everyone knows they're supposed to be back by now or within the next 10 seconds. So I'm sure by the time we get this next application all tooled up, we'll be back in business. So we are looking, as we resume the committee meeting, we're looking at item number 4 on our agenda, and that's 35 Mountain Street. It's Connie's excited. It's a minor variance application. So I'm going to just let the applicant know that the staff, we've all reviewed the report. Staff have recommended approval of your application. So at this time, excuse me, if there's anything you wish to add to the committee, you may do so. Otherwise, we have a lot of information and can make a decision. So please.
I don't think we have anything to add. Just thank you very much for your service, because my God, this is volunteer. God bless you.
I just started telling people that reminding people we're volunteer, and thank you so much, because you know it can be a commitment.
Absolutely.
So we'll if any committee member might ask a question of you. So right now I'm going to ask if any committee members have any further questions of the applicant, just to clarify their application. No? Anybody feel there's no problem here? We're probably, no, okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
So Robin, would you like to make a motion?
I would love to.
Okay, so drum roll, please.
Okay. The motion is, following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A0121, as presented in the notice of hearing, be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the technical report, although I don't think there were any, as the variance is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and is in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. And thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you so much. So for a reduction in 600 millimeters of side yard setback, the motion is in favor of staff recommendation and the applicant's application. All those in favor? Although, okay, it's been supported unanimously. You people may go and enjoy the rest of your evening. What's left of it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. You're welcome. So that was 35 Mountain Street. So that means we're looking at 3 more at the end of the evening. So number 7 on the agenda, due to some deferrals, is 91 Henry Street. It's a minor variance application, and we've received some written correspondence with respect to the application, which is part of our review package. The city, it's for 3 variances, and the city staff report is recommending approval. So everything should be encouraging to the applicant. So if the applicant has anything further you wish to add, or if you want to get the heck out of here like the rest of us, we'll just do our job. So please, applicant, do you wish to add anything?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion regarding this application? Is it any actually any questions of the applicant? Anything unclear? No, nothing to staff. Okay. So Adam, did you want to continue?
Yes. All right. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application, I've lost the number here, A521 for 91 Henry Street as presented in the notice of hearing, be approved, subject to any conditions outlined in a technical report. As the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, I just want to assure people we're not rushing through this. These just happen to be more straightforward than the last couple. So everything gets the same amount of attention. Only doesn't require as much attention. So any discussion about that motion? No. All those in favor of the motion? Okay, so your application has been approved unanimously. Enjoy your, what are you building?
Front
Oh,
addition.
an existing condition. Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Enjoy your existing condition.
Thanks.
Okay, item number 8 on our agenda. Oh, there's Charlotte. This is for 159 Beach Street, where I walk past every day with my dog pretty much to the dog park. This is a minor variance application. There are a number of minor variances, 7. And the staff recommendation is for denial outright. So I will assume that the applicant is going to want to speak to us about their take on their application. So
Yes.
Ben, is that you?
Yes, that is me.
All right. Well, please. It looks like you're a bit of an aviator fan.
Somewhat. They're my dad's photos.
Lovely. Okay, please.
Well, first of all, my name is Ben Waitson. I'm just a carpenter that from humble beginnings.
Some famous people were carpenters from humble beginnings, you know, so.
Yeah. I'm trying to restore this triplex to back to a triplex. First of all, for the background, I did send Elaine some photos of the 3 kitchens that were in the property when 2 kitchens that were in it when I bought it. And the 3rd one was there previously.
So Elaine is going to bring up those photos that you provided to that you can refer to.
It's Henry.
We're getting there. Oh, there. Yeah. Oh, here we go. So it's a long, narrow lot with a couple of entrances, which probably was conducive to subdividing or multiple uses.
So that is the upstairs kitchen from the 2007 listing. And then this is the basement kitchen from when I purchased the property. That is what was behind the first layer of paneling in the basement kitchen.
Who doesn't love avocado green? I mean, I grew up with that refrigerator and range, that same color.
Yeah, which leads me to think that this kitchen was probably original to this back addition of the property, which was put in around 1950.
Right.
As for the staff report shows that the legal severance for the right of access to the back driveway was established in 1983, and apparently he must have had the non-conforming triplex at the time, because according to staff, it was a single detached dwelling in 1983. I do not believe it was, but I have no real proof of that. If it was a single family in 1983, very shortly after it was converted to a triplex. As per an email from Dave Stewart, in 2007, the property was converted from a triplex to a single family, which was when the previous owner bought it. And just after the owner before him failed to have it converted to a duplex. All my variances are just to basically make it a triplex. So they all are. The big objection the city staff seemed to have against it was that they don't feel I meet the planning, that my property size does not meet the general context of the planning policy, which is 20 to 32 units per hectare. As indicated, so looking at that, I decided to look at the 2 adjacent blocks to my property. In here, there is 30 or 55 dwellings, 4 of which are duplexes, 1 triplex, and 2 fourplexes, which gives a overall dwelling capacity of 67 dwellings in this 3 hectare space, which according to the planning policy should have between 60 and 96. So there is plenty of room for more development in this section of town. And it's also very walkable, as one of the written comments that had supported me had said. The main issue from everyone, all the public consulting, seems to be parking. And I agree, there seems to be a parking problem in the area, which is why my variance 6 and 7 will allow me to conform to the parking requirements of a triplex. 7 really should have been acknowledged with the garage, because the existing parking of even a single detached dwelling really needs 30% lot coverage when your garage is at the very back of your lot. That's
a good point.
And especially as a 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom home, whether this is a single family duplex or triplex, the parking requirements are really the same. They're anywhere between 3 and 6 spots. I would say it probably needs more parking as a single family, because it'll most likely be a multi-generational family that owns it, which will have at least 3 cars, if not all the way up to 8.
So just to contribute, if I may, as you go along. So the city, essentially, what this adds up to is the zoning by when your property is measured against the zoning bylaw, is suggesting that the size, regardless of the context of the block or the 2 blocks around you, the configuration and size of this lot does not support the number of human beings that could be accommodated if it was a triplex. And that would include, unfortunate things like parking and cars, but more lovely things like amenity space, trees, outdoor space, space for children to play, and so on. So, so if you were to, for me, to summarize what these variances mean and the staff's recommendation for denial, and we'll have the planner involved comment on that, is that they feel that the physical characteristics of this site, all listed in the variances, that what you're proposing with a triplex is an overdevelopment of what that site can handle, regardless of who in the past may have under their own decisions turned a single family residence into a 3-unit residence. So something has triggered this. I'm not sure if you applied for a building permit or if there's sometimes neighbor complaints, but your situation here and now is being compared against the current zoning bylaw, and whatever happened in the past is sort of catching up to the property now. So with that topic, perhaps Charlotte, obviously you are participating in this. Can you confirm that what I'm saying is somewhat right with respect to as a triplex, this land cannot support it based on the measures that the zoning bylaw puts in place?
Yes, Greg, the density requirements are applied per lot, because as you've pointed out that there's a 3 hectare area that you're sort of looking at the overall density of, but each of those lots could develop to the extent of their density. They could each develop up to around 32 units per hectare's worth of density. So we go on a case-by-case basis and a lot-by-lot basis. This lot couldn't support more than a single-family home due to the narrow lot, due to the lot area that it can provide. That is the extent contributing to the density of this area. There are other larger lots in the area. You can see in the lot fabric, it's varied. Some of those may be a better candidate for actually intensifying the area than this one.
And Charlotte, the current zoning bylaw governing this lot, could you just remind me again, just to highlight your variation, what is allowed in this zone overall, just generally speaking?
In terms of
dwelling type and configuration.
That would be, I believe I actually have it right here. Yep, that's there's a detached dwelling, semi-detached, duplex, triplex, quadruplex, fourplex dwellings, and townhouses if the lots permit.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that for the applicant, because again, like every law that sort of governs a variety of situations, even though a triplex is allowed for the right conditions in this area, the city is suggesting that when they apply the zoning bylaw, the conditions aren't right with specific to this lot. So I'll hand it back to you, Ben, to finish your thoughts, but I just wanted to put in context how the city looked at it and how we will be looking at it this evening. And if you want to try and speak specifically to that.
Yes, I did understand how the city looked at it, and I can see how their opinion of it would be that. I believe that is the wrong approach to take to intensify especially a century-old area like this with a very sporadic density, because most of them are all older homes on really deep, narrow lots, which don't allow for the frontage of most of these properties. I would like to point out that even with the slightly larger driveway, over half of my backyard space is still landscape space for amenities in that, which is more than any of the other multifamilies in the 2-block radius I looked at. In fact, my lot is larger than all but 2 of the multifamilies in the area, including the one fourplex.
Okay. Is there any you should know, in summary, is there anything specific that you haven't mentioned that you'd like to get in there before we deliberate?
I really feel that it's an appropriate use of the property to return it to what it was, being that it has only not been a triplex for about 10 to 15 years. And I'm pretty sure the previous owner was using it as a duplex, as my water bill is currently built from the city as a duplex. And the fire department was very happy with the renovations that have happened with the property, and they gave me a fire certificate in November, just before this was triggered.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope I've demonstrated to you that we understand where you're coming from, because we just heard you, and we understand where the city's coming from, and we will use both that bits of information to form our own opinion, but it will be either a yay or a nay. And we're on 159 Beach Street, so we have one person registered to speak, and that would be Kathleen. Hello, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me, Chair and the Council Committee. I'm not against development in general, and that is a very large building. And I realize there's a lot of work gone into it, but I do have concern about parking, because I live on Dufferin Street East, and a lot of the parking, people who live on Henry Street are coming over to Dufferin Street to park. I also have elderly neighbors that require home care, and there are so many parking infractions on that street. And usually I just leave a note for someone if they're blocking my driveway and say, please move. I don't call the city, but it's getting really, really bad. Also,
And you're concerned that this will contribute to the
yes,
public street
because,
parking?
yeah, a triplex means 6 cars usually, and 3 might be on the property, or 2, and there might be 3 on another, an additional 3. And it's not this particular development, but in the developments coming forward, where realtors are offering these big homes, no matter what kind of parking is available. And read it in the advertising, like, for example, 73 Henry, that didn't turn into a triplex, but the ad was, yes, you can convert this to a triplex because of zoning. And thankfully it wasn't turned into one. But I just wanted to say that considering the size of the building, you might consider a duplex, but a triplex is a little bit too much for me. There's a problem that maybe in '83 they didn't have a school there. They have the Harriet Tubman School that's bordering on Dufferin Street East, which is one street parallel to Beach. And we have a lot of walkers. There's a dog park there. There's a lot more people on foot. And personally, my daughter was hit by a car on her way home from school when she was in grade 4. So it kind of motivated me to speak about it. And just the fact that without adequate parking, the neighborhood will lose a lot of the green space. Sometimes if the zoning is R2, it doesn't mean that it's always appropriate. That's what I just wanted to say.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. It does contribute to the conversation. So I think unless there's really, I don't think there's really any rebuttal required from the applicant, unless you feel there's something you want to say. But I think
I would like to add to that.
Okay. So you're speaking to me about what was said.
Yes, I do agree with the person that R2 zoning does not always accommodate for multifamily. I do believe my lot is very adequate for the use I've requested, being that there was a large existing driveway to accommodate the 3 vehicles. Unfortunately, it is a little narrow getting between the houses, which only allows for mid to small size vehicles, which is why I've asked for the reduction in parking stall size. As to the school, I would actually think that is a plus for a multifamily in here, because the majority of renters usually actually only have 1 car. It's more people who own the single to families that have multiple cars and take up a lot of parking. I think that's really all I have to say.
Great.
Thank
you. I want on record as saying I technically do not own a car and have been for some years. I ride a bicycle and walk, and I borrow my wife's car every now and then, just on the parking issue. So I get the fact that
this neighborhood is so good for.
Yeah. Well, I get the fact that we don't want to be a slave to the automobile and keep on paving over everything so people can own multiple cars, and that is a factor in the city's zoning bylaws and urban planning zoning bylaws, is to try to recognize when there are walkable communities and public transportation, and I assure you, Ben, that a lot of that consideration would have been applied to your application, despite the fact that there was still enough in there for the city to recommend denial. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to someone to make a motion on the committee with respect to this application. Adam?
All right, I just have a question.
Oh, you have a question? Sure, yep.
Yes, from you to the applicant. There was a concern from a written comment about the right-of-way. They were asking if it was a deeded right-of-way or if it's an agreement. So is there any possibility of?
Yes, in the staff report, in the severance from 1983, the driveway was severed and is an actual deeded right of access for the property.
Okay, great, thank you. So Adam, while you're talking, you might as well just roll this right into a motion. Are you in agreement?
Yeah, I will do the, I just gotta find my, there it is. All right, following consideration of all oral and written presentations, I move that variance application A0621, as presented in the notice of hearing, be denied as the variances are not minor in nature, they're not appropriate and desirable for use of the land, and they're not in keeping with general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Well, the motion is in support of, happens to be in support of staff recommendation.
Yes.
Although, right. All those in favor? So that was supported unanimously for the denial. So hopefully you can make see if a duplex can work better for you. I'm sure there's a solution. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Kathleen. We're going to move on to our final application for this evening. And that is for 189 Geneva Street. It's a minor variance application, minimum side yard reduction to half of what it's supposed to be, roughly speaking, to accommodate a proposed attached carport. City planning staff report is in favor of the application, and the applicant is here this evening. Are you Kim?
Kim. Yeah.
You are, so you have read the report, and you know, having watched all the exciting applications before you, how this works. So at this time, if you think there's something that we need to know to help us make a decision, please do so. Otherwise, we'll be happy to move into a motion.
I don't think there's anything to be added short of the fact it's just very slight variance. And it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, well, I'll ask the committee members if anyone has any clarifications or anything to ask of the applicant. Looks like no. So then we will move right into someone taking, David, please take this motion.
In consideration of all written oral presentations, I move that variance application A0721 is presented in the notice of hearing be approved. Is the variance?
Come on, don't lose it.
Pardon me?
You're breaking up a little bit.
Where do you want me to go back to?
Just start over, please. On my end, anyway, you broke up.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentation, I move that variance application A0721 is presented in the notice of hearing be approved, as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, all of those in favor of the motion to support the application, show of hands. Okay, congratulations, Kim. You made it to the end. It's
Thank
not
you.
quite 8 o'clock yet. Get the heck out of here and enjoy your carport.
You too. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Okay, so it's just us and some hangers on. I guess we want to talk about new business, if there is any. So Elaine, anything we need to talk about?
No,
Anybody
no
else
business.
want-
No.
Okay, everybody's healthy and well and enjoying this. David Ringler?
Elaine, do you want me to forward a copy of that motion that I made for Herrick?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay.
I think we're, yeah, so we'll be doing the minutes.
I like to say that, David, when it comes to some of these more sensitive and complex issues, the time you take before the meeting to put into words what needs to be said is very much appreciated. Very, very well done. Thank you so much for your efforts. It shows. Now the rest of you. So it's all good. Yes.
Will.
I wouldn't mind a copy of that motion, actually.
There we go. I figured
there is a
David
taker.
already has it written out, so why not publish
Well,
it?
actually, it's a bit of a mess. It's got.
I'll take whatever you have.
Well,
Okay.
Dave, you offered, so now you will follow through, no doubt.
Okay.
So with no new business, I have to move to adjourn the meeting. And someone has to put up their hand and we say, okay, David, thank you for moving to adjourn the meeting.
Excellent.
Apparently we hadn't been doing that in the past, and it was pointed out to me. So thank you all so much. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye now.
Yeah,
Good night.
hang on. Yeah.